Hello, and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I am KristaLyn.
And this is the last time you guys are going to see this background. If you're watching this, here, I'll turn on the lights. Hold on. I'll make it really fancy. But yeah, no more background of this. The rest of my house at this point in time is actually empty, basically. Mm-hmm. It's this little tiny cave that is still full.
Yeah. M is on the move. Much
yep.
Unlike Mercury. I'm actually so glad. My astrologer heart was like, you got the closing before Mercury retrograde. Yay. And you even got everything moved before Mercury retrograde. Like, I'm so happy for you.
No, thank you. I'm happy for me too, for that reason. A million different reasons. It was actually really interesting. And Krista knows this, but I'll tell you all as well. We got the keys to our house. So we closed officially literally the exact time that the new moon was exact. And I know because it was on an email. Like I got an email at that time saying you can go unlock the keys. Like it's officially notarized. So like I have so physical proof that it was. And I was like, yes. And I like ran down. I was like, Weston, we just got the email. It's the same. Like it's exactly at the time of the new moon. He's like, I didn't know we had a counter. Oh yeah, we were counting down to the new moon exactness. He was like, you should have told me. So sorry, but it worked. It's fine. Yeah. And we have the world's absolute best friends that showed up and just moved us all in like a day. I mean, they're coming back today to help us and finish this out. But the next time we record one of these, it will be in my new, very permanent office.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about it. It's a big deal. It's cool energy. It's weird. I will say, and this is something I want to actually would love to bring up here, especially in this Mercury retrograde period where we all get very emotional. It is just a symptom of Mercury retrograde. When things break, we get upset about it. And so a lot of emotions come up. But whenever there's a big life change, whenever you have a big life change, it's really easy to force yourself to focus on just the positive pieces of it, to just be like, oh, moving forward, all these things are super exciting and awesome, and not acknowledge specifically the person you were pre that life change. Like whether that's like you get a promotion at work or you're moving, or even sometimes like a vacation, or a family member passes, or whatever it is. We have a very, as a species, of this like, well, we'll just keep going, we'll push forward, we'll move, which has its benefits, of course. However, for like a metaphysical and like healing level, that's where you start to like cut off pieces of yourself, and then a while down the line you're like, whoa, like I feel all scattered and like we need some integration. So just gonna say, during this time when a lot of us are having a lot of big life changes, Venus retrograde is a doozy. Just remember to take some time to like actually acknowledge who you were before then and love that person and feel anything you need to feel, whatever it is, because there is no right or wrong way to feel. Like I've been working with it with my kids a ton this week because they're equal parts like so thrilled to be moving and each getting their own room for the first time, and it's a bigger house and it's so much space and all these things, but they love this neighborhood and we love this house. It's wonky. It was built by someone who didn't know how to build houses, obviously. If you look at my weird little hobbit hole office. But it was also like the house where we like really truly grew as a family. We've been here for 7 years, and that's like most of their life at this point in time. So it's been a whole mixed bag of feelings from all of them all at the same time. And so like acknowledging and watching how like kids process so much more authentically than adults process. So I just wanted to share that with everybody on here because I think it's just something that we bypass, and it's an important thing to acknowledge, because we'll usually just go through something and we'll feel what we need to feel in the moment, and then we just push past it and we're like, oh yeah, okay, now I'm on this side of it and everything's fine, and we just kind of like compartmentalize and ignore it oftentimes, and then it sneaks back up a while later. Or like if you get married, people do this all the time when they get married because the before them isn't married. So they're like, okay, well, that was nice, whatever, we were just dating or we were fiancés or whatever. And they just kind of like section that off and go into this like I'm thrilled to be married stage. And there's almost like an unallowing, like I'm not allowed to be
Mm-hmm.
grieving that version of it. You
Mm-hmm.
absolutely are. You still lost something. You gained a bunch, but you lost something too. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, those are
So,
all amazing points and relatable. I'm sure tons of people are relating to that right now. Like when I moved out of Pennsylvania and down here, it was so liberating to be in a whole new environment that felt more supported, and like all of this stuff is good, but there's so much that I did end up having to integrate of the person who held on so tightly during the transition and
yeah.
got me through. And it's like, you know, if you've had even traumatic experiences in the past, you know,
Yeah.
the dissection that you have of
Mm-hmm.
like, that was that version. Working in EMDR, I've had to talk to that version of me a couple times and just like, what were you
Mm-hmm.
doing? And it was so funny because at one point I was talking to like my physical representation of that version, and I was just like, why did you let this happen? And it was like, oh, I was protecting us. Boom. Okay, got it. And it's like, okay, well, now I can not only process what happened, but also
Mm-hmm.
respect who that
Yeah.
person was, even though they didn't have the resources I have now to be as empowered or whatever.
Yeah.
So remembering that that's not the bad version of you or the outdated version of you. It's just the previous version of you that you're building upon. And it was keeping you safe. It was thriving in the best way it could thrive. They
Mm-hmm.
were setting you up for success.
Yeah.
So yeah, great point. I love that.
Yeah. It's interesting because right the other day someone said like on like a TikTok or something, I forget where I saw it. Um, and they were like, just remember your future self is talking shit about you right now. It's like Wes and I were just sitting there drinking wine. We both just like, cheers,
Yep.
drink the wine. Awesome. Like
That is
great.
so true.
But it's so true. And it's a kind of cool perspective to be like, that's right. Like we're because we're at this crux of this massive life change, right? And
Mhm.
so just to kind of sit there for a second and be like, oh yeah, well, no matter what, we're going, even though we're going to like, we need to integrate and like love these parts of ourselves. Us right now is eventually going to be another part that we have to love and integrate because our
Mhm.
future self's going to talk shit on this part. Like it's just going to be how the cycle works.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a really cool thing because it's an inherent human thing. It's not something that animals do.
Mm-mm.
It's not something that like a lot of other beings out there do. They don't process change the way we process change. And I think that's like one of the coolest parts of being a person, even though it's messy.
Mhm. It's the messiest.
It's so messy.
Yeah, it's a complete wreck,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
it's you know, like you said, it's a privilege in a sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we get to be
Exactly.
so contemplative.
Mhm.
And speaking of contemplation, nothing's as
Let's talk.
cerebral and mental as Mercury in Virgo.
In Virgo, Mercury's doing
I
the
mean,
moonwalk in
Mercury
Virgo. Isn't that
retrograde in
great?
Pisces. I think Mercury retrograde in Pisces would be, or even Sagittarius would be like the ultimate philosopher, depending on the vibes of that. But
We're fucking
Mercury in
chaotic.
Virgo, and yeah, I mean, I think that'd be cool. Me with my little Earth Mercury is like, let's do something more. But this is Mercury in Virgo, where normally, so this is what I've been thinking about as I've been sitting with it and talking to Mercury. I had a consultation with another astrological magician the other day who
Mhm.
reminded me that Mercury is the nature of my good diamond or the good spirit as
Yeah.
indicated by my chart. And I was like, oh yeah. And he was like, you should talk to Mercury more. And I was like, I should. So I was talking to Mercury and I was like, hey, you're doing a thing right now. How's that going? He was just like, well, I'm in charge. Nobody else has rules but me, and I'm about to go rogue. And I'm like, that's an interesting thought, right? Because
Oh,
it's Mercury in domicile
great.
and exaltation, resources and praise, right? So nobody's coming out to be like, hey, maybe tone it down. There's no one telling him no or where to go or to say he's only dreaming, right? So
Which is
it
the Hermes myth. Like
is
Hermes walked out of the room and stole a fuckload of cattle. That's it.
the
That's what
end.
Hermes did. So
Yeah.
like
Well, and speaking of Apollo, the sun comes into Mercury or
it's
to
this great.
Virgo on the
Sorry, it's like
same day. That's literally what I channel Mercury, which would be similar to channeling Hermes, different slight vibe. But I was just
Mhm.
like, cool. Anything I can do to brace for that? Like you're in a really notable place in my chart. The Virgos out there of any variety are going to be wondering about this. Um, but he was like, yeah, I've got all the resources, all the influence, and I'm going to do what I want. So I've already noticed as Mercury arrived at the stationary degree that they will retrograde on yesterday. My phone dropped straight out of my pocket and flat on its face, and I needed to get another screen protector. And while I was
No.
at it, no, the phone is fine. Because I
Okay.
have an agreement. Several years ago during Mercury retrograde, my phone cracked like 2 weeks before retirement because I was about to get a new phone. And I was
Yeah, I
just like,
remember.
hey, I respect you being the communication person and it's about to be retrograde. So what I did was, and you'll recognize the difference here, I went out, I got a new screen protector, I got a better case, and I got a new little pop socket with a corgi
Oh,
on it.
it's cute.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
like these were like right in my face. So I was like, this was supposed to be what I did today. It was more
Yeah.
expensive than I would have liked, but like the Virgoan thing to do is insurance,
Yeah.
right? It is being prepared. So I was just like, this is happening at stationary. Retrograde is still ahead. I'm going to be ready to be defended and protected. And I'm going to just have the resources I need to navigate change or, you know, some systemic stuff. That being said, Mercury also being the ruler of books, you were asking me, and someone else was asking me about how I have this huge compulsion towards my folk magic roots right now. And there's a book that was mentioned in my lineage that involves Brahari as like its actual plot. And it came out in like 2019. And I was at the bookstore the other day looking for a book that I want to add to my shelf. And I could not find any of the books I was looking for. But what was facing out on the shelf?
No.
Facing out on the shelf, the only copy was this book.
Okay.
So I was like, fine, I'll buy that then. So it is now on my shelf. It is my next read, whether I like it or not, because I respect it. So my Mercury retrograde read will be this. It's called The Cunning Man. It's not the only book titled The Cunning Man. Give me 1 second.
You're good.
Yeah, because if I reach way over here, I can get it. It's The Cunning Man by DJ Butler and Aaron Michael Ritchie. So, you know, it's even on the back is like mystical abilities derived from a common sense application of Scotch Irish folk wisdom and German Bracher magic, like literally in the description. And then of course, everything's been pointing my direction of this. So as Mercury just prepares to go retrograde in my over my midheaven, I'm just like, okay, we're going to be learning some new stuff that's going to be really important to my direction going now on, which is probably why I started the Modern School of Ancient Wisdom too, because that really incorporated the folk magic.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see what you do with the folk magic, to be totally honest, because I know you're really incredibly good at it. And like your talismans, and I know those are astrological magic, but you can obviously do folk magic with that. And like that is kind of a folk magic in and of itself, are incredible and so good. And I'm really excited for you because you reach this level with astrology that most people will never get to. You're so good at it. You know way more. You've read so many ancient texts than like more people. Like it's massive. And I know you've worked so hard for that. And looking at you 5 years ago, like manifesting this in, or 4 years ago, whatever. I guess it was 5 years ago, right?
Good
at this
God,
point.
Yeah. We met in 2018.
We did. We met in 2018. We didn't start working together until like 2019 because you were on the other podcast. And then we worked. Yeah. But anyway, beside the point, this has been a long time. It's awesome. But like at that point, you're like, I just want to know all this stuff about astrology. And so seeing you do that is really, really cool because you got to that level. And now seeing you be like, oh, and now this is the next space for me to move into to like teach and incorporate is such a neat thing. So I just want to like give you props there. Yeah. And your school is so cool. And I'm really excited for you. So
thank you for that.
That's my 2 pieces.
I always appreciate positive feedback and encouragement. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so interesting because Mercury already Mercurying around. We get to our like new house and I'm already my realtor, who was an absolutely glorious person. He's incredible. He's so amazing. He gifted us with the house a 1-year home warranty. That was his gift that he like included in the closing and whatever that he covered. Okay. It was so amazing.
I have a funny story for after this.
Okay. Yeah. But with that, I was like, oh, perfect, right before Mercury retrograde. And I already like went in and I'm like, oh, there's these things that are kind of already happening that weren't happening before. And this thing that's already happening that weren't happening before. Good thing we got that warranty. So again, what you're talking about on like insurance, I'm like,
yeah. Super smart. No, I was laughing because when we moved into the house that I was in previously to here, our realtor gave us this, not a warranty, but a sort of metal work with our name on it, or it was like wood or
Oh.
a picture. It was like all the letters were different pictures of like architecture where the letters seem to occur naturally with our name misspelled. So I'm like, I would have preferred a warranty than a misspelled picture, but thank you.
That's so funny. Oh
It was
my gosh.
Montrose instead of Montrose, which is my the married name.
Oh my
So
gosh. That is so funny, Krista.
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. People are wondering,
Yeah.
like, why are you choosing your own name now? It's another thing I'll be doing
Montrose.
during Mercury retrograde, which is hilarious because Mercury retrograde happening in the 10th, and I'm looking into
Yeah.
evolving my name into something new. Yeah.
What I'll also say, sorry, I just like coughed into the mic,
Yeah.
but it snuck up on me. I try to mute it when that happens, and I was like, oh, can't. But I will say, when I look at the energy of this Mercury retrograde, and I've already been sitting with it quite significantly, Mercury and I have a very tenuous relationship.
It's a great
Love
word.
Mercury. Even doing planetary charity and getting Mercury tattooed on me is not enough. Beside the point. um with all of the stuff going on, the things that I've been channeling in from this particular season and like looking at the energy of big things, pay attention to your health, take conscious intentional rest time, because your body is a technology, it is a communication system. And if you this is going to be the retrograde, I think, that hits a lot of people in a physical capacity, in an actual health and wellness capacity. And whether that is like you know, stub your toe an excessive amount, or you get a cold or whatever, if you take intentional rest time, that will help. It'll help. And when I say intentional rest, like, tell your body you are resting. Half the time our body does not understand that we are resting when we think we're resting, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you think about it this way, you work all day, you make dinner, and then you're like, okay, I can sit on the couch for just like 30 minutes and watch a show before I have to wash the dishes. Do you think your body is processing that as rest, or your body is processing, oh, we're going to do this before we wash the dishes? Probably that one, probably the latter. So if you tell your body, hey, body, we're going to rest for 30 minutes on this couch, we're going to totally be embodied in this rest, we're not going to feel guilty, this is just our rest time, your body will actually be like, oh, and then you'll feel the difference of like, oh, actually we rested. Really, really important. Intentional water, I think, is really important as well. Not just drinking a lot of it, but setting intentions in your water for this Mercury retrograde. Super important. Hold on, I'm gonna cough again. Gotta pause. So I say as I like, I tried to pause the mic and
And
it
it
didn't
didn't
work.
work.
I was like, oh
I
my God,
wasn't
I'm
going to
so
tell
sorry.
you.
I know it didn't work. I was like, pause, but it was too late. I couldn't hold it. As I say, like, take intentional rest, and I've like lost my voice over the weekend. It's fine. We're
You're going
good.
to need to rest after the move. I think that's what they're telling you right now. That's my ping for you live on
Yeah.
this broadcast.
So
Sorry.
no, I know that. I keep being like, guys, I can't, like, I have to move my whole house
Not
right
yet.
now. It's not like an optional thing. I can't not do
But
that.
have you promised and committed and held space for after that you're going to?
Absolutely. I'm
Okay,
going
good.
to.
Then they should leave you the heck alone. I
They
was just
should.
looking, and ironically, my 11th house is your 12th house because of the natures of our charts. So your nature of your bad diamond is
Oh,
Mercury, just like Mercury is the nature of my good diamond. That gets very complicated. Like, you know, I'd have to go into books worth of astrological magic to explain this to people. So just lucky nature as compared to like the
less lucky.
well, yeah, the one that's like gonna set you up for challenge if you need it.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is great because
refer
I'm
to a
also,
couple, yeah, refer to a couple episodes back when we talked about working with demons and stuff,
yeah.
because bad diamond could be similar to the nature of what we talked about with that.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I'm, you know, obviously I'm a Gemini sun as well, and Mercury rules Gemini. So
Yeah. Well, and
it's
that's one of the things that I was talking about with Eric
tenuous.
Purdue. Yeah, like what happens when the ruler of your sun or the ruler of your chart is also the nature, and it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
There's more than one way to work with it. It's Mercury, excuse me, of the nature of
Oh, no, you're
Virgo,
good.
not of the nature of Gem. It's complicated.
Yeah. No,
Something I
you're
would
good.
talk about with someone in a consultation if they
Yeah.
were that concerned about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so tenuous relationship with Mercury.
Mhm.
But anyway, drink intentional water. That's super important during this time. And also I think it's really going to hit communication systems on a very widespread level. I think we're
Mhm.
going to have like less of like personal technology messing up, it feels like to me. I think personal technology is going to be, I mean, it's always going to be funky, but just kind of okay comparatively.
Mhm.
I think it's really going to be a lot more of like widespread communication things, like platforms that are used for communication having some blips, or even structural communication things. I wouldn't be surprised if some servers went down for some things
Mhm.
and had to get rebooted. Like
Customer
that's what
service is going
I'm
to be
seeing.
awful.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's what I'm seeing
Not that
as
it's
I
great
call
right now.
today before Mercury goes into retrograde to get my
Yeah.
internet transferred to the other property. I'm like, oh no, we're doing it today. Like,
Yeah.
this is not, we're not doing that. But yeah, just those types of things kind of coming up pretty significantly. That's what it looks like mostly this time when I look at the
Mhm.
energy of it,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Do you want to hear the astrology?
Go for it,
Because
always.
it checks. So here's the thing that's notable about this. For anybody who's interested, around August 4th is when Mercury started covering the degrees that it will recover during the retrograde. We call this pre-shadow. It's not necessarily shadow. It's like if there is light and there's shadow on either side, that's when it covers it the first time. It's going to cover it again. Pre-shadow. Cool. So Mercury will officially go retrograde on the 23rd. If you're interested in super duper details, by 4 p.m. Eastern time, you're going to have retrograde.
Mhm.
On the 23rd, which is Wednesday, Mercury's day. So not only is Mercury domicile, exalted, also ruler of the day. I haven't checked the hour, but I can, and I'm gonna, because if it's also the ruler of the hour, and I don't think it will be because it's not rising. Well, no, that might be different. Hang on. I'm gonna check. Sorry,
You're
we
like,
have to
oh,
know.
take it back, take
Yeah,
it
no.
back.
So no, it's actually going to be right around a Saturn hour. So we don't have that layer of I don't want to say
Good.
domicile or dominion. Dominions work. So it will be that way until September 15th at 4:21 p.m. Eastern time. So that's kind of like what we're looking at. Since August 4th, pay attention to what comes up. Those kinds of themes are going to be maybe what we revisit during the retrograde until the 15th. Then we settle it back down. Now that's the timeline. Let's talk about the nature of the retrograde. Because when I say chaotic, I'm not just saying Mercury, who is, arguably chaotic in their own right. They're stationing retrograde trine Uranus. So there's
Yep.
there's that. And also on the same day that the sun will be coming in
I'm sorry,
to,
I
yeah,
got this image of Uranus with a big spoon, like a really big spoon, just like stirring the
stirring the
pot like
pot.
this. Like,
Well, I'll include that in my skit this week and inspired by Emily.
okay, I was like, why?
Yeah, because tomorrow I
No.
have to record the skit for this, and they have not revealed to me yet what it's going to be, because it's Mercury retrograde, Mercury trine Uranus, and the sun moving into Virgo. So the sun giving Mercury chariot as well. When a planet is in domicile with the sun, they have chariot, sort of like the support. And he's not even invisible, because he's at his elongation. He's going to head back to the sun. So Mercury is visible, domicile, exalted, day, chariot, like all the stuff going on, and then trine Uranus. So this to me resonates with, it's going to make things easy to change.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're excited about change, fantastic. If you're conscious about change right now, where you're like, hey, I'm working on something and I'm experimenting with something, change is sort of the name of my game right now. I'm trying new things. Fantastic. This is a great time
Mm-hmm.
to be trying different exercise, not medicinal, with the help of a professional, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
oversee your medicine practices, to ask your doctor, all those things, nutrition, all those things, taking care of the physical body to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Your typical routines and habits are going to be helpful because they do compound into your ultimate health and wellness. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, don't forget your mental health and wellness. Virgo does a lot with stress and anxiety because it rules the gut, and the gut is stirred up or churned up by the nervous system. So especially with this being a Mercury thing, take care of your stress, take care of any overthinking, give yourself peace of mind,
Mm-hmm.
strategize, do to-do lists, compartmentalize whatever you need to, schedule time for things to make yourself feel in control.
Mm-hmm.
And then be willing to change if they need to, because Mercury.
Yeah. I mean, good. Good call. Very, very good call on that, on that part. I will also say, and we've been talking about this too, there's going to be some very interesting political stuff that happens in the scope of this. Obviously, when you guys listen to this, Hillary's already gone through Hurricane Hillary. And there was an earthquake at the same time, and we were both predicting like something wild was going to happen
With the weather.
on Monday. And
Yeah.
guess what? Woo! Very intriguing energy there that we're dealing with. But yeah, just a lot of very interesting energy this week that's kind of presenting for you. And then throughout retrograde, I will say the first half of Mercury retrograde actually looks more, I'm going to say settled. I'm going to pick settled as my word. Settled is going to be the word that I'm using. Not that it's going to be comfortable or whatever, but because Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde are happening at the same time, and this is the second half of Venus retrograde, which is also kind of like a rebuilding sort of zone is what it's feeling like for a lot of people, or a cool, we broke a bunch of stuff, what now? That kind of thing. And now Mercury's coming in like, oh, what now? It feels a little bit more like a thinking, a little bit more like it's very internal, which is good. We want those things. Those are not bad things, guys. They're not bad. But it just feels that way for this kind of first half. And then the second half, I think we're going to get a lot more of the like physical stuff from Mercury retrograde coming in, being physical, things actually like, getting messed up, us having to take longer and travel, those kinds of things during that second half till like September 15th or whenever it goes back out.
Yeah. So the second half, if anybody's wondering, the Cazimi will be I think on the 9th of September, or the 6th of September. The 6th is
Okay.
or the 7th, kind of in that phase. So that's when we will be halfway through. And then the 15th is when it does end. Yeah. Venus actually finishes on September 4th. So we'll get a reprieve from that first.
So yeah. So that's what I'm viewing it as and seeing it as in that sort of space. Yeah. Also, it's a really great time to be like, how has Venus retrograde been for me so far? Let's talk about it. Like, let's think about it. Let's do a journal session. Let's pull some cards. Really interesting. I was cleaning out stuff and I found my pendulum again, which my pendulum will disappear for a while and then it will come back when it is needed. So I'm very intrigued to see what I do with that because I don't usually need the pendulum, but it just like pops in when it decides. So we'll see how that goes. But a lot of people are kind of coming up with that. I also wanted to talk about just really briefly, because we keep mentioning this on things. You were talking about how like the book was on the shelf exactly that way, of like exactly what you needed. When we say the veil is gone, this is what we mean.
Yeah.
The veil is very gone right now. The veil is, the separation between us and spirit is not there. And it's getting in quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker for people to realize it. And you're getting responses much faster and people are seeing more things and tapping into more things, and technology is picking up on more things and all this space. And I've said it before, but I think in the next 2 years, we're really going to see this, a lot of very, what people before thought were like conspiracy theories, or you could choose to believe or not, those kinds of things, just being like, oh, well, this is just a fact now, and just moving on, for like the general populace too, which is going to be really interesting. But you can already start picking up on it. I mean, all of you listening already know, right? Y'all, a lot of you who listening already are like, oh yeah, like I already do these things. Well, it's just going to become easier and easier for you to access spirituality. But that also means it's going to become easier and easier for people who are not necessarily trained to access spirituality, or not necessarily prepared to access different spiritual plane stuff. So that's going to cause a whole other layer of chaos, which is going to be very interesting to navigate. However, with everyone listening here, and if you're drawn to this, it's for you, of course, but like leaning in on kind of that space and being really prepared and just grounded and helping work with it, making it collaboration instead of a like weird hierarchy or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you bringing up that book thing, I was like, oh, look at that veil not being there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to just walk around and some of us have been cultivating it for a long while, so it's feeling even more intuitive and natural, instinctual. But I love what you're pointing out with like it's going to be accessible to people who maybe haven't respected it as much. So it's going to be very important to be discerning about who you kind of put your faith in. in a lot of stuff, speaking about conspiracy theories, what will be true, what may be revealed to be not true at all. It's going to be interesting to see what pierces those fogs or those clouds. And I think we've been very trained in the last 3 years to either be like, I'm just not impressed enough to be worried, or to be like, I need sources, which I think is going to be very helpful as we navigate the energy ahead.
I think it's really interesting. Just a really interesting example of this that came up in the last week. Of course, a lot of people were being like, the Hawaii fires were started by like a government laser, whatever. And and rightfully so, they had a lot of reason to believe that. And I totally get it, because especially with like, Vanguard and BlackRock trying to buy the properties immediately after the fire, like it's been awful. My favorite thing is I saw a TikToker who always reports on stuff is basically like, those like Hawaii laser rumors. Well, they weren't totally wrong, but it wasn't lasers. It was this asshole named Scott, and just like talked about how basically the Hawaiian like government let the power companies just not do the things they were supposed to do, and the power companies made a bunch of money basically in not doing the things they were supposed to do, and then the shit caught on fire, and it was all this guy named Scott, like the CEO of the power company's fault. So like, yes, it was started by the government basically, but no, not in that way. And that's a lot of what's going to come up of like, there's some asshole named Scott. It's part of this, but not exactly that. So
this is still the source problem, but what we're seeing is it's not that complicated.
So just that's the kind of perspective I'm taking on a lot of things, of being like, okay, there's some truth here. What is the truth? Because it's stemming from somewhere. And it's stemming from somewhere, but just not as elaborate or not as exaggerated as one would think. It's just some asshole named Scott who didn't cut down tree branches to make money, which is still the government. So anyway, beside the point, but I thought that was like a perfect encapsulation of exactly the energy we're moving into.
Cutting corners when you should have been cutting tree branches, Scott.
Right? Damn you, Scott.
That being said, I hope you and your family are all recovering and getting whatever is necessary in the circumstances.
God doesn't live in Lahaina. Scott didn't burn. No.
Well, what I meant was necessary. So my husband has this great thing, as we try to bless people who are frustrating us. So like if I see someone, it's like, I hope Dan does this a lot. I hope you have the day you deserve. It's like, yeah, because I don't get to choose what you deserve, but I hope it's exactly what you deserve. So, for Scott or the people who influence Scott, right? Or however deep that goes, I hope that whatever is deserved and whatever brings balance and the right thing happens. My personal opinions can be found later.
Exactly. But anyway, I thought that was a pretty good example of like exactly that kind of energy, that conspiracy energy kind of coming up. Because it's not that they're all wrong, it's just that they're altered versions to truth a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, beside the point. Yeah. So it's going to be a really interesting month. I will also say it's a really cool time. Mercury retrograde, though it's annoying and frustrating, is a really beautiful time for like change and creativity and expansion in a lot of very internal ways, which is always super neat.
It worked that time.
I coughed again. Which is always really neat. So you can leverage that time. Like you can very much leverage this to like start creative works. It just means creative works that you're probably going to revisit every retrograde. Those types of things. And that's cool. We like that. If you're shifting employment, you're probably going to revisit the employment every, 6 months when the retrograde comes again, or 3 months. I forget what the cycle is.
It's 3 or 4.
When the 3 or 4. When the retrograde comes again. And that's cool. That could mean that those 3 or 4 months you talk to your boss and negotiate a higher salary or get a promotion or something like that. It's like an expansion thing. So every time we remind you of this, we're reminding you of this again. Mercury retrograde is not the boogeyman. It will be fine. We promise.
I was saying to someone today, because I was talking on Instagram and Threads and whatever about how, Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde are going to coincide for a little bit. So if you're having misunderstandings in your relationships, bring a sense of humor and icebreakers and all that stuff. And someone DM'd me and they were like, is this going to ruin my relationships? And I was just like, if you do this, probably not, because they're dating someone and they don't want it to go wrong. And I was like, FYI, if you're both committed to it working, you still are empowered to do that. Like, this is a good time for things to dissolve. It's easy for them to. It's also just as easy to recommit and put in some work and change an existing dynamic to make it stronger. And I want people to understand that it's not bad. It is. It just is. And the energy is there, and you can use it to allow something to crumble and break up and be new, or you can use it to allow something to crumble and break up and be new. Hooray. Like, it's up to you how that turns out. And it also shows up in your chart, in your personal timing strategies and all that stuff. There is so much more in a personal consultation we could dive into, as like, how's this going to show up for you? In general, though, you're in power. You are always the one who is empowered in your own life. You are the one at the wheel. You know, especially now that you know it's coming, you can see it, you can adapt to it, you can decide how you're going to, you know, act according to and in accordance with the events. So go you.
Go you. And well, the other thing that's, I think, valuable to note in this space as well is basically the understanding that it's always going to present differently, but it's always going to present in themes. Like, we're just talking about like archetypal themes, but it'll be different for you uniquely based on your unique situation, your chart placement, the way the energy shows up for you, what you chose before you entered on planet to be activations. Like, there's so much nuance to it. So there is no rules. And I can't say that enough. There's no rules. There's just suggestions. There's just this notion of how it's probably going to go. And so you can see this undercurrent of, oh, it is going this way, but it's going to go different because you're you. And that's the biggest thing. So,
to that point, last week we talked about how nature was probably going to do something weird and shifty, and it was probably going to be large scale. We could not have said hurricane and earthquake at the same time, because we didn't know specifically that. But we were able to say, thematically, here's what we're expecting. And then when it showed up, it was like, I can observe this, I can witness this, I can, you know, at least see what's going on. Richard Tarnas is a really great psychological archetypal astrologer that really goes into this. He wrote Cosmos and Psyche, as well as Prometheus the Awakener, which is about Uranus. So he studies the outer planets and archetypal stuff a lot. If you're interested in more about archetypal astrology, but it is commonly the school of thought that's really well accepted right now, especially for the boundaries that need to be maintained in mass communication, is that astrology is archetypally predictive. That's kind of our go-to, just so you know. Can it be more specific and detailed? Absolutely, especially if we know what happened last time. Without context, we stick to the archetypes because it's not our job to get that nosy into other people's business without permission.
Nope.
Much as we want to.
Well, and that's what readings are for.
Yeah.
Readings are permission for us to be nosy and look at all of your stuff. We help you with them. We don't judge you about any of it, but it's also us being like, ha, 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 look at all of your things. We can fix
this is when it started. Here's how it's going. Here's where it wraps up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, couple things. We do still have some spots on our Italy trip.
Filling up.
It is filling up. Please come.
It's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be my birthday, you guys. Come celebrate my solar return with me. I'll have such a good time.
Honestly, I'm really excited for this trip. I'm so passionate, and I know it's going to be so incredibly activating and expansive for everyone who attends. Like, it's going to be amazing. Just looking at the energy of it already, I'm like, whoa, like the group that gets to come on this is really going to go through some, like every group trip we do, like it's so expansive and it's so loving, and everyone comes away with having a family, and it's beautiful. But this is going to be like lots of big personal realizations, lots of expansion in your intuitive abilities, like lots of really deep work with fun, deep work that you're going to be like, wow, I can't believe I did this. Wow, I can't believe that I understood that. Like, we're going to go places that you're going to just be like blown away by the spiritual energy there and how interesting it is, and that you can just like thinking of just Ostia alone, like there's just shards of pottery just around that you can just touch, like they're just there, like it's that level, and then you're channeling it in at the same time, like it's magnificent.
It's like, because they've maintained the site so well, it's 90% of the intuitive work done for you, because you don't have to imagine as much. You can literally validate and appreciate it in the moment, because you can be like, oh, I see this, there's that ruin, there it is. It's gonna be,
and you'll have people around you being like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, this feels like a temple. What do you get? I
Yeah.
totally get it's a temple. Blah,
When
blah,
we were
blah.
in
Like,
Ireland and several people were hearing music and chanting outside that one church, which I personally
uh-huh.
didn't hear, but three of them were like, you hear that, right? You hear, and they did. I'm
Yeah.
not as clairaudient as they are, but I was just like,
Hmm.
man, that sounds amazing, whatever it is.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was so cool. Yeah. So it's going to be just, I'm just so excited. It's just going to be mind blowing, I think, for everybody. And it's cool because there's so much history, but there's history in really distinct layers, is the way that
Mhm.
I like to say that it is. So that, when you talk to somebody, they'll when I say talk to somebody, I mean like you're channeling someone in, or
Yeah.
there's a ghost there, or residual
When you
energy on
connect
something.
with something.
Yeah. You pretty quickly get like at least some of the history there of like, where time period are you from? Okay, this is really interesting, and there's like a lot of expansion there. Plus we're going to get like a lot of the interesting shifts of energy, so we're going like Colosseum and Forum and ruins of that sort of space, which is obviously really really old, and Ostia Antica, which is really really old. And then we go to like Vatican, which is like theft
Yeah.
and like
It's a
religious
museum.
artifacts. It's a museum.
Yeah.
And like those types of things. So then we kind of go to the next layer of history, which is the years of, the Christian or the Catholic Roman Catholic Empire. And that was a whole different, energy there, and all the popes and the medieval sort of stuff. And then we do the Florence, and that's all the medieval and the Medici and all of this creative Renaissance energy
Mhm.
comes in. There's not a lot of medieval ruins even left in Florence anymore. It's almost all been Renaissance. There's a couple towers, and that's about it. So it's like you get to go through time in this really unique way that we structured it, and you get to channel the whole time. Anyway, that's all to say. We're really excited. Please come.
Mhm.
If you want
Yeah.
more information, there's payment plans available. They're really expansive. Like you can do like a 6 months, a 12 months, 18 months payment plan for the trip. So go check that out. And for, the more people that come, the more the price goes down for everybody who's coming, which is really exciting as well. It's a small group. I think it's 21 maybe, but it's
Yeah.
pretty small. It's a very intimate sort of space. It doesn't sound small, but I promise it is. It feels
Mhm.
small.
It doesn't
Um,
feel tourist groupy at all, which is
oh,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. We don't feel like, okay, here's this, and we're gonna just shuffle through this and like look at it and go, and then we're like, it's not that,
Nope.
which is really amazing. But anyway, limited spots. They are filling out, but please come. We would love to have you come. It's so fun. Please head there. And that's the first of our announcement. The second of our announcements, we are opening pitches again. And you guys are the first to know, of course, as you usually are. But if you want to write a fiction story that matters, if this Mercury retrograde is pushing you like, oh man, I really want to write, I want to create, I want to, do something to heal the world, and I want to enter into this next stage of my life. Oftentimes that next stage is your creative stage, especially right now. People are getting extremely burnt out, not only by 9 to 5s, but just by the culture of work environments. This is a space where you can enter into and really start branching out from that path, whether you end up being fully a full-time author or it starts you on the next part of your journey. That is a huge part of it. So
Mhm.
the Forgotten Storytellers is accepting pitches. We have our own publishing company now, and we only publish Forgotten Storytellers authors. So that is the other kind of perk there that we do in
Mhm.
Forgotten Storytellers, which is just really incredibly exciting. We love it, and we're so excited to do that. So if you want to submit your pitch, it's just your messy pitch, there's a form on our website, so ninthhousepub.com,
Mhm.
and you can pitch us. Pitch us your book idea. We want to know.
Yep. We're so excited. Oh my gosh. It's so wonderful to see how the ideas that you all have, because here's the thing. We want to save the world. We are not, we can't do all the things at once. You can do the thing that you can do. And we want to help support that. We want to help actually make it real. And that's where we can actually have that
Do
influence
that.
and give you people who understand, give you a space where you feel accepted, give you the skills and the techniques that'll help you succeed, and also help you trust yourself and your own intuitive ability and channeling skills. It's just everything. And it's probably one of the greatest blessings in our lives as well, to be able to get to
Yeah.
work with all of you and change the world
And
one story at a time.
yeah, absolutely. And like the stories you create we love so much. Like
Mhm.
every time
That's why we
one
created
of
a
our
publishing company.
yeah, every time one of our authors publishes or whatever, we're just like, oh my gosh, we're so excited to read it. Cause like we are so excited to read what you write.
Mhm.
Genuinely. It makes us so happy. We even have like an embossing stamp that we like
Yeah,
emboss
it's really strong. Yeah.
for when our authors publish, whether through us or not through us. We just
Mhm.
like stamp it.
Yeah.
This is our Forgotten Storytellers, which is amazing. So anyway, please pitch us your ideas. We would love to have you in the cohort. We keep the cohorts very small, just about 10 people. And that is very intentional. And you get to go on a writing retreat with us. This one, the
This
one for this cohort is going to be out in Richmond, and we're going to do a bunch of writery stuff, and it's going to be really cool.
You wouldn't believe the writery stuff that you can do in Richmond. It's going to be great.
It's going to be very neat. I'm really excited about it. And on that note, we have other fun announcements coming very shortly about things you can do with us. So just keep that in mind. Just percolate it.
Well, and if you're feeling overwhelmed by the announcements, just understand we are not doing something that every opportunity has to be one that you partake in. We're doing as many opportunities as we can so that when you're ready, you have one. So we are making sure that the opportunities continue to be available and ready for you, so that we get to meet you and we get to know you and we get to help you in the ways that we can help, and that you get to enlighten us in the ways that you shine. It's going to be wonderful.
Yep. It's magic. We get to do magic with you. That's great.
All the time.
In a whole bunch of different ways. Anyway, I think that's all of our announcements for right now, right?
Yeah. Yep. I think we're good.
We're doing so many things. It's like a little ridiculous. I had to answer a bunch of like questions for like our realtor and like the loan officers and stuff. Be like, what do you do for a living? I'm like,
about that. Yeah.
Which part of it would you like to know about? It's like a whole
I haven't
bunch,
found the title yet. I'm still looking.
No. I just say mostly it's a consulting position.
Smart. Yeah, I do lifestyle strategy consultant typically.
Yeah. So that's that. If you want to learn to talk about that, that's what that comes in. Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, we adore and appreciate all of you. Thank you all so much for being here. We hope you take all of this energy of Mercury retrograde and you
go make
some magic.
Commit to it and hope that it works.
Know, I guess. I think
that's how magic is, right?
Say bye-bye to the background. Bye.